The war had ended many years ago, yet fear still lived inside the hearts of the galaxy. Every race remembered the stories about humans. They were said to be predators, destroyers, a species that smiled while holding weapons, and for Zira, an officer of the Clyran Guard. These stories were not just history. They were warnings that shaped her thoughts, her training. Her very soul. Zira stood in the cold metal hallway of the research station, her sharp eyes fixed on the cell ahead. Inside the glass chamber sat Eli, the first human she had ever seen with her own eyes. He looked smaller than she expected, not as monstrous as the stories painted. His shoulders bent a little, his hands resting calmly on his knees. Yet Zira's heart beat faster every time she looked at him, because she knew deep inside, predators could wait, predators could pretend, predators could smile while hiding their teeth. Her commander had told her, watch him, study him, do not listen to his words, humans are liars. Humans use kindness as a weapon. Remember the records of burning worlds. Remember the children taken. Remember the endless hunger of Earth soldiers. Zira repeated these lessons in her mind like armor, because she did not want to be fooled, not by him, not by anyone. The air inside the station felt heavy that day. The hum of the power cores filled the silence. Zira stepped closer to the glass, her boots clicking against the floor. Eli lifted his head and his eyes met hers. His eyes were not wild like she expected, not burning with rage. Instead, they looked tired, soft, almost gentle. Zira froze for a second, and then quickly reminded herself, this is how predators hunt. They lower your guard with softness before they strike. You are the guard, Eli said quietly, his voice carrying across the speakers. His words were in basic tongue, the language of the galaxy, his accent strange but clear. Thank you for bringing water yesterday. Zira stiffened. Her hand touched the weapon on her belt. Do not speak as if we are friends, she snapped. Your words are tricks. Eli tilted his head, then gave a small nod. Maybe, he said softly, or maybe they are not. The calmness in his tone unsettled her more than any anger would have. She expected rage, threats, curses, but instead he spoke like someone sitting by a fire, like someone with nothing to hide. She hated how it made her doubt for even a breath. She turned sharply, not wanting to give him more attention, yet her ears still caught his next words. You look tired, guard. I hope you rested. Her chest tightened, because no prisoner had ever spoken to her like that before. Most begged, some screamed, others cursed, but never this, never concern. She walked away quickly, telling herself it was another mask, another layer of the human game later. Zira stood with other soldiers in the mess hall, their voices loud, their laughter sharp. So, the human still sits quiet, one of them mocked. Waiting for his chance, you will see, Zira. When the beast shows teeth. Another laughed. Yes, when the predator wakes, maybe it will be you who becomes prey. Zira forced a smirk. Though her thoughts were restless, she wanted to believe them. She wanted to hold on to the old image. But the memory of Eli's calm voice kept pushing against her defenses. Why would a predator thank his guard? Why would he ask if she had slept? These questions were dangerous, she knew, but they would not leave her mind the next shift. Zira returned to his cell. She expected to see anger, perhaps hunger in his eyes, but instead Eli was sitting cross-legged. His eyes closed, breathing steady, almost like meditation. When he opened them, he smiled faintly. The air here is heavy, he said, but it is not as heavy as your stare. Zira's hand moved to her weapon again. You will not trick me, she hissed. I know what you are, and what am I? Eli asked. His tone calm, his gaze steady. A predator. Zira spat, her voice echoing against the steel walls. A destroyer, a deceiver, nothing more. For a long moment Eli was silent. Then he lowered his head slightly. If that is what you believe, then maybe nothing I say will matter, he whispered. But know this, I will not harm you, not even if I could. The words sank into Zira's mind like stones dropped into deep water. She wanted to reject them, to laugh, to call him a liar, yet something in his eyes had no sharpness. No hunger, no hate, only patience. She turned quickly, her chest burning with confusion, her mind screaming with warnings, but her heart whispering something else, something she did not want to hear. The door closed behind her, sealing the human in his glass prison, and Zira clenched her fists, telling herself again and again, he is a predator, he must be. And yet, for the first time in her life, Zira was not sure if the stories she had been told were the whole truth. And so began the first crack in the wall of fear, a small quiet crack born not from war, not from fire, but from a single human's calm voice and a smile that refused to match the monster she expected. The station lights flickered as Zyra entered the cell block again, her boots tapping against the metallic floor, the echo following her like a shadow. She told herself she was only here because of duty, because her commander had assigned her. Yet deep inside she knew she wanted to see the human again, not because she trusted him, but because she needed to understand why he acted so different from the stories. Inside the glass chamber, Eli sat quietly, his back resting against the cold wall, his eyes following the shifting glow of the overhead lights. When he noticed Zyra, he smiled faintly, not the smile of a predator ready to strike, but the soft smile of someone who had been waiting patiently. "You return," he said, his voice steady. "Does that mean I passed your first test?" Zyra narrowed her eyes, her hand brushing over the hilt of her weapon. "Do not pretend you know me." "Human," she snapped. "You are watched." "Nothing more watched," Eli repeated as if tasting the word. "Then I must be the most boring thing in the galaxy. Sitting here day after day, breathing, waiting, talking to walls." Zyra wanted to ignore him, to stand silent as a true guard should, but his calm tone made silence harder than speech. "You pretend to be harmless," she said coldly. "But I know your kind. You will wait until the right moment. Then you will strike." Eli tilted his head, his eyes curious rather than offended. "If that is true," he asked softly, "why am I not striking now? Why do I not try when you stand alone, armed, but still within my reach?" Her chest tightened at his words because it was true. He had moments. When she brought food, when she entered codes, when she stepped close to his glass cell. Yet he never moved with violence, never lunged, never showed teeth. "You are patient," Zyra insisted. "You wait like a hunter in the tall grass." "Or maybe," Eli said. "I am not a hunter at all." His voice carried no sharpness, no pride, no threat. And that unsettled Zyra more than any roar could. Outside the cell block, 2 other soldiers laughed, their voices dripping with scorn. "Our officer spends too much time near the human," one said. "She waits for him to bare fangs, but all she gets are soft words." "Careful, Zyra," another called through the door. "You may start believing his lies, and then the predator will own you." Their words cut, because Zyra feared they might be right. She pressed a hand to the glass, staring hard at Eli as if daring him to reveal his hidden nature. But he only sat there calm, watching her with eyes that held no claws, no fire, only quiet curiosity. "Tell me," Zyra demanded suddenly, her voice low, "why do you not curse me? Why do you not hate me? Your people fought ours once, you lost much, and yet you look at me as if I am not your enemy." Eli leaned forward slightly, resting his arms on his knees. "Because you are not my enemy," he said simply. "You are a guard, a soldier following orders. Why should I hate you for that?" The simplicity of the answer struck Zyra harder than any complex argument. She had been trained to believe humans held endless grudges, that they burned with revenge. Yet here was one who spoke as if forgiveness was natural. She tried to harden herself again, to push away the strange warmth creeping into her chest. "Your words mean nothing," she said firmly. "They are designed to weaken me." Eli gave a small shrug. "If kindness weakens you, then maybe strength is something different than you were taught." The words echoed inside her long after she turned away. That night Zyra could not sleep. The sound of Eli's calm voice replayed in her mind. The way he said strength might not be claws or fangs, but something else. She hated the unease it gave her. Yet she also hated the thought that maybe she wanted to hear more. The next day when she returned, Eli was humming softly, a tune strange and slow. It filled the cold chamber with something almost warm. Zyra frowned. "What are you doing?" she asked sharply. "Music," Eli replied, his eyes half closed. "A song from my world. It helped me when I was far from home. I thought it might help here too." Zyra crossed her arms. "Music is not a weapon." "Maybe not," Eli agreed. "But it can heal things that weapons break." The simplicity of his words unsettled her again. She wanted to argue, to strike down the idea, but instead she found herself listening to the rhythm of his voice, the melody weaving through the silence. It was nothing like the harsh chants of her people. It was soft, flowing, almost gentle. Her guard shift ended, but she lingered by the glass longer than usual. Eli opened his eyes and gave her that faint smile again. "You stayed," he said quietly. "That means something." Zyra stepped back quickly, heat rising in her chest. "Do not think your tricks work on me," she snapped. Yet her voice lacked the sharpness it once carried. She walked out fast, her boots loud in the hallway, but deep inside, she knew the truth she could not admit. The human was changing something inside her, not with force, not with fear, but with patience, with kindness, and that was more dangerous than any weapon she had ever faced. The silence of the cell block was heavy, the hum of power lines vibrating faintly through the walls. Zaira stood with her arms crossed, her gaze locked on the human once more. She told herself it was duty, nothing more, yet inside her chest a restless storm brewed. Eli sat quietly, his eyes calm as always, but this time Zaira did not stay silent. She stepped closer to the glass and spoke firmly. "Tell me the truth, human. Tell me why you hide your predator nature." Eli tilted his head, his expression thoughtful rather than defensive. "Why do you believe I'm hiding?" he asked softly. "Because all records prove it," Zaira snapped, her voice sharp. "Your people burned colonies. Your ships carried fire, your armies left nothing but ash. Your kind hunts, kills, conquers always. It is written in our archives. I grew up hearing your name whispered like a curse." Eli lowered his eyes for a moment, his hands resting loosely on his knees. "Yes," he said finally. "We have done terrible things. There is blood in our history, I cannot deny it." Zaira leaned forward, her eyes blazing. "So you admit it, you are predators?" But Eli shook his head slowly. "We are more than that, Zaira. Yes, we have wars. Yes, we hurt. Yes, we destroy. But we also rebuild, we also heal, we also choose kindness. That is what your archives do not show." His calm tone unsettled her. She wanted him to shout, to bare his teeth, to prove the predator she expected. But instead he spoke like someone telling a painful memory. "On my world," Eli continued, "there were wars so great that millions died. Cities turned to rubble, families torn apart. Hatred spread like fire, and yet after the war, people reached out hands to each other. Enemies rebuilt together. Children of old rivals shared bread. Kindness bloomed in the ruins, not because it was easy, but because it was needed." Zaira frowned, her chest tight. "Lies," she whispered. "You tell pretty stories, but they mean nothing." Eli looked up, his eyes steady. "Then let me tell you another. There was once a soldier, a human soldier, who stood on a battlefield. His enemy wounded before him. He could have killed him. No one would have stopped him. But instead he carried the enemy on his back, walked through fire to bring him to safety. That soldier lost his own life from the smoke, but the enemy he saved lived. Lived to tell the story. Lived to raise children. Lived to forgive." The chamber felt colder somehow. Zaira's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to deny the image, but she saw no lie in Eli's eyes, no hidden trap, only quiet sadness. "You expect me to believe," she whispered, "that humans, the same species who burned our colonies, can also be saviors?" "Yes," Eli said simply, "because we are both, predator and protector, destroyer and healer. The choice is ours. The question is, what do you choose to see?" His words struck her like a blade, not of steel but of truth. She turned sharply, trying to walk away, but her legs felt heavy. Her mind swirled with images she had never considered. Later that cycle, Zaira sat in the barracks, listening to the laughter of her fellow guards. Their words sharp, cruel. "The human speaks honey," one said, "and our officer drinks it like water. Careful." "Zaira," another sneered, "soon you will be calling him friend, and then he will eat you alive." Their voices filled her with shame, but also with anger, not at them but at herself, because she knew she was listening. She knew his words were still echoing inside her mind. That night she could not rest. Her dreams were filled with images of burning worlds, but also with strange visions of hands reaching out across the smoke. She woke with a start, her heart racing, unable to shake the thought that maybe, just maybe, there was truth in what Eli said. The next day she returned, her steps slower, her face tense. Eli greeted her with that same calm expression, as if nothing had changed. "You look tired," he said softly. "Enough!" Zaira snapped, slamming her hand against the glass. "Stop pretending. Stop speaking as if you are harmless. Show me your fangs, human. Show me the predator I was trained to see." Eli held her gaze for a long moment. Then he whispered, "I have no fangs for you, Zaira. The only weapon I carry here is truth. And if that truth scares you, maybe it is not me you fear, but yourself." Her breath caught because deep inside she knew he was right. She was not afraid of his claws, she was afraid of her doubt, afraid that the walls built by her people's stories were crumbling. Brick by brick, Zaira turned away quickly, her fists clenched, but she could not silence the voice in her mind, the voice that asked, "What if he is not lying? What if humans are more than predators? What if kindness is the truth her people had always hidden? And as she walked down the hallway, her reflection flashing against the steel, Zaira realized for the first time that the human in the cell was not the only one being studied. She too was being tested. Tested not by his strength but by his patience. His stories, his kindness, and though she hated to admit it, part of her wanted to hear more. The station was restless. Whispers filled the corridors like smoke. Zaira felt the change before she heard the order. The council wanted to test the human, not with questions, not with stories, but with pain. She stood in the observation chamber, her hands clenched behind her back. Through the wide glass she saw Eli being strapped into a chair, thick bands of metal locking his arms and legs, his face calm but pale, the cold machines humming around him. The lead scientist, a tall figure with silver skin, adjusted the controls. "We will see if the human bleeds calm as he speaks calm," the scientist said, his tone sharp. "Let us test if the predator hides behind gentle words." Zaira felt her chest tighten. She told herself it was necessary, that proof must come, but deep inside a small voice whispered, "This is wrong." Eli looked up, his eyes searching the glass until they found her. His lips curved in that faint smile she had come to know. "Do not worry, Zaira," he said through the speakers. "I will not give them what they expect." Before she could answer, the machine whirred, sending a current of energy into his body. Eli's shoulders shook, his teeth clenched. But no scream left his lips. Instead he whispered, "Please." "You do not need to do this," the scientist sneered. Raising the current again, Eli's body jerked harder, sweat rolling down his face. Zaira felt her nails dig into her palms. She wanted to look away, but she could not. "Fight," one of the soldiers muttered behind her. "Show us the beast," but Eli did not fight. His voice came out rough, weak yet steady. "I will not harm you." Even now, the words hit Zaira like a storm. Her people had said humans would bear claws under pressure. That kindness was a mask that cracked under pain. Yet here he was, chained, burning with energy, and still choosing not to curse. Not to hate, not to roar. The test dragged on, every wave of current striking his body. Yet Eli only whispered words of mercy. "Stop, you do not need this, I forgive you. Forgive." Zaira's mind echoed, "Forgive." The word felt heavier than steel. Her commander stood beside her, arms crossed. "Strange creature," he muttered. "But do not be fooled, he is waiting. Waiting until weakness opens a door." Zaira did not answer, her throat too tight to form words, her eyes fixed on Eli, whose gaze, despite the pain, never turned to hatred, only patience. Finally, the test ended. The scientist shut down the machine, disappointment in his eyes. "No rage," he said, "no violence. Perhaps the predator hides deeper than we thought." The soldiers left. Muttering, the scientist recorded notes. But Zaira remained, her feet refusing to move. Eli lifted his head slowly, his eyes half closed, his body trembling. Yet he still smiled faintly. "You see now," he whispered, his voice barely strong enough. "I do not want to be your enemy." Her heart ached in a way she had never known. She pressed her hand to the glass, her voice sharp but shaking. Why do you not fight even now when you have every reason?" Eli's answer was soft, almost broken. "Because fighting you would prove their fear true. Because kindness is the only strength I have left. If I lose that, then I am no better than the monster they believe." Zaira stepped back. Her breath shallow, she had no reply. Later that cycle she walked the long halls of the station, the voices of the soldiers filling the air. "The human is broken," one said. "He has no fire, no claws. Perhaps he is weaker than the legends. We should end him." Another muttered, "What use is a predator who refuses to bite?" Zaira clenched her fists, anger burning inside her, not at Eli, but at them. Because she saw something they refused to see. She saw strength not in his violence, but in his refusal, in his calm, in his forgiveness. That night she could not rest. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his trembling body, heard his soft words, forgiveness spoken through pain. It made her question everything, not only about humans, but about her people, about herself. The next day she entered the cell block quietly. Eli sat weakly against the wall, his breathing slow, his skin pale. When he noticed her, he still managed that small smile. "You came back," he whispered. Zaira swallowed hard, her voice rough. "Why do you thank me? Why do you smile? After what we did to you?" "Because you are here," Eli said. "Because you stayed. Because not everyone would." His words felt like a blade and a bomb at once. Zaira turned away, her voice shaking. "You are dangerous, not because of teeth, but because of this." This patience, this kindness. It breaks walls more than claws ever could. Eli closed his eyes, his voice soft. Then maybe breaking those walls is the only way we stop being enemies. Zyra stood frozen, the hum of the station around her, her thoughts a storm. For the first time she realized she feared not the predator her people warned about, but the truth that this human's kindness might change her forever. The station was always cold, its walls made of steel and silence. Yet that day Zyra noticed something stranger. The silence was softer, less heavy, as if Eli's presence had changed the air itself. She told herself not to think like that, not to imagine feelings where none should exist, but her heart kept betraying her mind. Eli was still weak from the test, his skin pale, his breath uneven. Yet when Zyra entered the chamber, he straightened himself, his back pressing against the wall, his eyes lifting to meet hers. "Good morning," he whispered, his voice thin but calm. "You should not speak," Zyra said firmly, though her voice carried less sharpness than usual. "Your body is not healed." Eli gave her that faint smile. "And yet you are here, bringing me water again." Zyra placed the container through the small slot in the glass. She did not know why she had taken the cleaner supply, the fresher water usually reserved for officers. She told herself it was duty, that the subject must survive for study, but deep inside she knew the truth. Eli drank slowly, carefully, then set the container aside, his eyes soft. "Thank you, Zyra," he said, his tone carrying no tricks, only sincerity. Her chest tightened. She turned away quickly. "Do not thank me," she muttered. "I am only following orders," but she knew that was not true. No order had told her to bring better water. No order had told her to leave a blanket inside the slot when the night cycle was colder than usual. No order had told her to care over the next days. She found herself doing more. Small things that could be explained as duty, but felt like something else. A warmer meal when others would not bother. A longer pause to listen when Eli spoke one shift. Zyra entered the block with her arm wrapped tightly in cloth. The training session earlier had left her with a deep cut. She ignored the sting, but Eli noticed instantly, his eyes narrowing with concern. "You are hurt," he said softly. "It is nothing," Zyra replied quickly. "A soldier does not complain." Eli leaned closer to the glass, his gaze steady. "Show me." Zyra frowned. "Why? Because I may know a way to help," he said simply. For a long moment she hesitated, then, almost against her will, she unwrapped the cloth slightly. Showing the cut deep and still raw, Eli's eyes softened. "Humans call this binding wrong," he explained. "If you keep it tight without cleaning, it will fester. Let me guide you. I can teach you how my people heal." Her pride screamed against it. She was the guard. He was the prisoner. How could she accept help? Yet his tone was calm, not commanding, not mocking, only offering slowly. With reluctant steps she listened. She cleaned the wound as he instructed. She loosened the binding, and to her shock the pain eased. "You see," Eli said gently, "sometimes healing is simple. But only if we choose to care for the wound." Zyra froze. Because she heard more in his words than medicine. She heard meaning. Deeper meaning. Words that touched her doubts and fears. "You speak as if wounds are more than flesh," she muttered. "Because they are," Eli replied softly. "Some wounds live inside, and those need kindness more than bandages." Her throat tightened. She turned away quickly, but she could not stop the truth from reaching her heart. Days passed, each one filled with these small kindnesses. Eli never asked for more, never demanded freedom, never cursed his prison. He only gave thanks for what little she offered, and each thank you chipped away at the stone walls inside her. One evening, Zyra found herself lingering by the glass. Eli was humming again, the same soft tune from before, the melody weaving gently into the silence. She listened without realizing, her eyes drifting closed for a moment. "That song," she whispered. "Why do you sing it here?" "In chains, because music reminds me that chains are not the whole world," Eli answered. "It reminds me of stars, of home, of people I loved. And it reminds me that even here I am still myself." Zyra's chest burned with something she could not name. She pressed her hand against the glass, her reflection merging faintly with his image. "You are strange, human," she whispered. "Strange and dangerous." "Dangerous," Eli repeated softly. "Because I care." She did not reply, but she did not pull her hand away either. That night, alone in her quarters, Zyra unwrapped her bandage and saw the wound healing cleanly. She remembered his guidance, his calm voice, his patience, and she whispered to herself, "Why does he help me?" Why does he care? The next day she asked him directly, her voice hard but shaking. Why do you not hate me? Why do you not despise me for what my people have done? Eli looked at her for a long moment, his eyes soft, his voice steady. Because hate is easy, Zira, anyone can hate. But kindness is hard. It takes strength. And I choose to be strong. Her breath caught, because she had never thought of kindness as strength. In her world, strength was claws, weapons, scars. But Eli showed her something else, and it terrified her, because she wanted to believe it. And in that moment, Zira realized something dangerous. She was no longer guarding a predator. She was guarding a mirror that showed her not what humans were, but what she herself might become. The council chamber echoed with heavy voices. Shadows stretched long across the polished floor. Zira stood near the back, her jaw tight, her fists clenched behind her. She had been summoned not as a speaker, but as a witness. The fate of the human was being decided. The eldest counselor, her silver skin glimmering under the light, spoke with a voice sharp as steel. The human has shown no use. He refuses to fight. He refuses to reveal his predator's heart. He is weak, and weakness is worthless. Therefore the human must be destroyed. The words struck Zira like a blade. She felt her chest twist, her breath catching. She wanted to shout, to argue, but her training held her tongue. She was a soldier, not a voice of law still. Deep inside, her heart roared with a truth she could not speak. As the meeting ended, the decision was final. Eli was to be executed within the cycle. The soldiers around her murmured approval. At last, one said, the predator will be ended before he strikes. Or perhaps another laughed. We are just putting down a broken beast. Zira walked the hallways in silence, her mind storming, her steps heavy, each word of the council echoing inside her. But louder still were Eli's words. His forgiveness during the test, his gentle smile when weak, his guidance when she was wounded. She could not accept that such a being should be erased. When she entered the cell block, Eli was sitting as always, his back against the wall, his eyes calm. He looked up as she approached, and for the first time, she felt pain in meeting his gaze. They have decided, she whispered, her voice low, her throat tight. You are to be ended. Eli nodded slowly, no fear in his face, only quiet acceptance. I thought so, he said softly. I felt it in their eyes. You do not fight, Zira snapped suddenly, anger flashing in her voice. You do not scream, you do not curse. Do you not care for your life? Eli's smile was faint, almost sad. Of course I care, but fear will not change them. Anger will not save me. If my end comes, then let it come. But I will not give them hate. Not even now. Zira's chest burned, her hands pressed against the glass. You forgive them, even as they kill you, she demanded. Her voice trembling. Yes, Eli whispered. I forgive even you, Zira, if you must follow their orders. I forgive you too. The words shattered something inside her. Her vision blurred, her breath shaking. She turned away quickly, but the sound of his calm voice followed her, forgiveness wrapping around her like chains. That night she sat alone in her quarters, staring at her reflection in the steel wall, her face hard but her eyes trembling. She remembered her training, the warnings, the endless lessons of humans as predators, but none of them matched the human she had seen, the human who smiled through pain, the human who forgave even those who sought his death. Her mind screamed duty, but her heart whispered truth, and the whispers grew louder. When the execution day arrived, the cell block was filled with soldiers, their weapons gleaming. Eli was led from his chamber, his hands bound, his steps steady. He did not resist, he did not speak, only looked ahead, calm as ever. Zira walked behind, her heart pounding, every step heavier than the last. She could feel the eyes of her comrades on her, expecting her to stand proud, to watch the end without question, but she could not. The chamber of execution was cold. A chair of steel waiting, Eli sat without struggle. The straps tightened around him, the machine humming, the council watching from above. This is justice, the eldest declared. This is safety. But Zira heard nothing. Her ears filled with Eli's whisper. I forgive you. The machine powered up. A bright glow building, Eli closed his eyes, a faint smile touching his lips. And he spoke softly. Zira, do not carry their hate. Carry your own truth. And in that moment, Zira broke. She stepped forward, her voice sharp and shaking. Stop, she cried. The soldiers turned in shock. The council froze. Her heart pounded as she shouted again. Stop this. He is not what you say. He is not a predator. He is more than that, gasps filled the chamber. Weapons raised toward her, but she did not stop. She moved between Eli and the machine, her arms spread, her eyes blazing with defiance. You call him weak because he does not fight, but I have seen his strength. I have seen it in his patience, in his kindness, in his forgiveness, and it is greater than any weapon we hold. The council's voices thundered. Soldiers shouted, but Zira stood firm, the hum of the machine fading as confusion rippled through the chamber. Eli looked up at her, his eyes shining with something she had never seen before. Trust. Zira knew then that her life had changed forever. She could no longer be the silent guard, no longer the obedient soldier. The breaking point had come, and she had chosen to stand with kindness, even if it meant standing against her own people. Chaos filled the execution chamber. Soldiers shouted, weapons rose, counselors barked orders, yet Zira stood firm. Her body between the human and the machine, her arms spread wide, her voice carrying louder than she thought possible. You call him a predator, she cried, but I have seen more mercy in him than in any of us if he is dangerous. It is only because his kindness shames our cruelty. The room erupted with anger. Some soldiers demanded she be removed. Others hesitated, confused by her defiance. Eli, strapped to the chair, looked at her with calm eyes, his lips forming a faint smile. Zira, he whispered softly through the chaos, you do not have to do this for me. But she turned her head, her eyes burning. I am not doing this for you, Eli. I am doing this for the truth, for what is right. The eldest counselor slammed a hand against the panel. Seize her, she shouted. Both of them. The human and the traitor, soldiers advanced. Their boots thundered against the steel. Zira's heart pounded, her instincts screamed to fight. But Eli's calm voice cut through the storm. Do not meet hate with hate, Zira, remember. Her hand hovered near her weapon, but she stopped, breathing hard, his words reminding her of every lesson he had shown. Strength was not violence, it was choice, it was mercy. Instead of drawing steel, she raised her voice again. Look at him, she shouted to the soldiers. Look with your own eyes. Does he bear claws? Does he curse? Even as you strap him down, even as you call for his death, he forgives us, and you call that weakness. I call that power. Some soldiers faltered. Their steps slowed. Their eyes flicked toward Eli, and for the first time doubt spread like cracks in stone. The counselor roared in fury. Enough, activate the machine. End this farce. The operator reached for the controls, but Zira moved fast. Slamming her hand against the panel, sparks flew. The machine shuddered and went dark. Alarms blared as systems failed, smoke curling into the chamber. In the confusion, Zira rushed to Eli, unstrapping his arms, her fingers trembling. Can you stand? She whispered. Eli's legs shook as he rose, but his voice remained steady. With your help, yes. Together they moved. Soldiers shouted, some raising weapons, but hesitation froze their hands. The image of Eli standing weak yet calm, beside the officer who had once called him predator, tore at their certainty. Blasts echoed as a few fired warning shots, but Zira pushed forward, guiding Eli through the smoke-filled corridors. Alarms blaring across the station. This is madness, Eli whispered, though his lips curved in that faint smile. You risk everything for me. I risk everything, Zira said firmly, because you showed me there is more strength in kindness than in cruelty, and I will not let that strength die. They reached the hangar, soldiers closing in from behind, ships gleaming under harsh lights. Zira pulled Eli toward a smaller craft, its engine still warm from recent use. She activated the hatch, shoving him inside, then turned back. Weapon in hand, not to kill, but to hold the line, Zira, Eli called, his voice urgent. Come with me. Do not stay behind. She glanced at him, her heart heavy. She had been trained to die for duty, but now she wanted to live for something else, for truth, for the choice she had made. She leapt inside, sealing the hatch. Alarms screamed as the ship powered up. Soldiers pounded on the bay doors, but it was too late. The craft roared to life and shot forward, blasting into the cold sea of stars. Silence fell inside the cabin, broken only by the hum of the engines. Zira's chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. Eli sat beside her, his eyes on the endless void outside. Then he turned, his gaze steady. You saved me, he said softly. Zira shook her head. No, Eli, you saved me. You showed me that strength is not in fear or hatred, but in patience, in kindness. I only followed where you led. For a long moment neither spoke. The stars sliding past in silence, then Eli whispered, then perhaps this is not just escape. Perhaps this is the beginning of something greater. A seed of peace. Zira felt the truth in his words. She thought of the soldiers who had hesitated, the doubt in their eyes, the cracks forming in the wall of lies. Maybe this act, this defiance, would spread further than either of them could see. She leaned back, her eyes closing, her voice quiet but firm. Then let the galaxy learn what I have learned, that kindness is stronger than fear. And no lie can hide that forever. Eli smiled, his voice soft. Kindness wins. And in that small stolen ship drifting into the endless night, a predator and a soldier, no longer predator and prey, no longer enemy and guard, began a journey not of war but of hope.